I'm Jonathan Pope. I'm one of the co-DPs of The Social Dilemma, which was directed by Jeff Orlowski. I typically work in narrative, but I do also have a background with a lot of music videos and commercials. I try to bring the same sensibilities to a lot of them and just adapt it to whatever the director is looking for. The film is really, really unique and interesting. It's a feature-length doc, but it has a completely original narrative film that's been written to support the doc and illustrate the ideas that are being talked about in the doc. And so how it came about was they had actually shot it as a documentary, and Jeff and his team at Exposure were trying to think of ways to help illustrate these really big ideas, and so he came up with the idea of writing a completely original narrative that I had then shot later. So when I got brought on, they sent me a cut of the film that was the full, about 90 minutes to 100 minutes. That was all of the footage that they shot, all of the doc stuff, intercut with storyboards in place of where the narrative would go. It is a really tricky subject matter because it's about, really the easiest way to describe it is about the dark side of the tech industry, which is easy to say and hard to grasp and hard to quantify and you can't see it and you can't touch it. Jeff really wanted to find a way to make that tangible and take these big ideas and distill them down into something that was easy to digest, because the film really is the starting point of a larger conversation in culture, and he's trying to create a movement and create a conversation, and he needed a way to make these big ideas digestible to the mainstream. My pre-production time was very short. It was about a week. They had already been doing work prior to me being brought on board. Adam, our production designer, was brought on board prior to me, and he had already kind of mapped out plans for the set that he was building in LA. We shot for about 2 weeks, mostly in Colorado, Denver, and Boulder. And then we had a couple of days, pre-light day, and then a couple of photography days in LA on stage. And then we went back to Colorado for 1 day of additional photography. So John Behrens is an amazing cinematographer. He did the work for the documentary side of it. John and I actually did not communicate during production or even during pre-production, but he left me with a really good palette to go from. So I looked at his work, which was very clean and very complimentary of the subject matter. If I wanted the narrative to have some character brought out by the lenses, which is why we went with anamorphic, I wanted to kind of embrace a look that just felt very filmic. Because we had a really, really, really short pre-production time, there wasn't much conversation in the way of what camera to use. They had shot on the Red Monstro. Jeff was really comfortable with that, and he really liked the look of that. And so that was a very easy choice of, okay, well, let's go with the Monstro. So then where our discussion really came in was in the lens side of things, of how to bring a look through the lenses. John Barron shot spherical, they shot 16:9, and then when I got brought in, the immediate conversation with Jeff was, okay, well, how do we differentiate the narrative from the doc? And I immediately thought, what is the easiest way to distinguish ourselves from spherical? And the easy answer was obviously anamorphic. So I pitched him on shooting with Cooke anamorphics, which I had used several times before and really loved the look of. And so in the film, we actually change aspect ratios. When we're in the doc, we're in 16:9, we're in the narrative, we're in 2:4, and it jumps back and forth. We tried as much as possible to give it a stylized, naturalistic look. So I played with a lot of window light, a lot of natural sources, and augmenting available light. And then in our sci-fi section of the film, we had this beautiful set that our production designer Adam Wheatley back in LA, that we went with a much cleaner aesthetic and tried to play around with some cyans and colors that felt a little more unnatural and a little more high-tech. The other visual distinction between the two was that with the Cooke anamorphics, we used both the special flare anamorphics and the non-special flare anamorphics. So the idea pitched Jeff was for all of the real world stuff, we would shoot on the special flare anamorphics, which have a lot of characteristics. They flare in a really beautiful way. The non-special flare anamorphics, we use those for the sci-fi world inside your phone look. I mostly worked with sky panels, stereotubes, and then we had a few HMIs that we were working with. Because we had to shoot fairly quickly, I needed ways to hide units in places. So that's where we use the Astera Titans, and that was great to be able to just hide those in spots to be able to get exposure, get a nice hair light on someone. On our sci-fi set back in LA, we used the Titans as built-in. So we would have them along the walls, we'd have them in panels. Next to that, we had the sky panels, which were wonderful. We had, I think on our sci-fi set, we had about 4 S60s that we would rig to the ceiling. And in Colorado, we played with a lot of natural window lighting. So there was heavy HMI use, and then we had a sky panel to kind of fill in where we needed to, in addition to the Asteras. We also used some quasar tubes as built-ins. If we ever were able to just leave something and didn't want to have to recharge it, we would use those so we could just keep them powered and bring them on whenever we needed. Because of the really truncated pre-production time, there wasn't really any time to create a specific LUT for the film that I would usually like to do. So we were shooting on the Red Monstro, and I just worked with the IPP2 color space in camera and kind of lit to that, because I was actually really liking what I was getting out of that, and so I just would modify colors accordingly. The film premiered, and it was amazing. We got a standing ovation at the end. It was just such an incredible feeling. And it was great for me in particular because the only full cut of the film that I had seen was the one that did not have any narrative in it. It was just the doc with the storyboards when they first interviewed me. So I haven't seen the film and since then until the premiere, and so everyone is just over the moon with it. I think we could not be happier with it. It was such a good experience.